What's up?
Hey, are you able to send the link again?
Sure, I'll send it. Okay. What is up, everybody? Good morning. Good morning. It's Dr. Vibe, sounding a little different, as you can tell. I have a little bit of a head cold that I've been battling over the weekend, and our friend that's going to be joining us this morning has given me a remedy, same one my dad would give, so I may have to go to that. But as always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Dr. Vibe here, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers that is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. So we're here on the Morning Vibe, October 17th. October is already half done. What? Half done. Yes, what? So before we go any further, just have to do a little bit of a spot here. So today's episode of the Morning Vibe is brought by the Macmillan Group. So the Macmillan Group provides mortgage solutions since 1999, and it's a wonderful thing. It's a generational business. So whether it's Canada, US, they can provide you mortgage solutions. Canada, 905-813-4354. US, 904-586-5636. So I'd like to say thank you so much to the Macmillan Group for their continued support, not only sponsoring the Monday Morning Vibe shows, but also contributing to great conversations. So Ryan will be with us momentarily, but let's get our friend up. And he's been out with us a few times now. And the more we get him, the more we want more of him and from him. And he is an elder to me, and an elder and a friend and an advocate to many others. I like to say Dr. Louis Marsh. I don't know if he'll say that, but Louis Marsh is with us this morning. Good morning, Dr. Marsh. How are you?
I'm fine. And yourself?
Blessed, highly favored, magnet for miracles, solution for someone's problem. Black delicious, even though I'm congested.
Very good. No, thanks for having me on the morning vibe, the Monday morning vibe. And thanks for, allowing us to use your platform to talk about issues that are directly impacting our community. I really appreciate that.
Well, it's not my platform, it's our platform, because without you and others, it doesn't happen. So it's our platform. As you say, it's a community massive broadcast platform. So I thank you for the kind words, but we're those who care, we're all in this together.
Awesome.
Right? So, and today, Louis is going to be talking about an event that happened a little while back, the Community March Against Gun Violence. And also, we'll talk a little bit about the upcoming municipal elections in Toronto and making sure that you ask the people who are running about their thoughts on gun violence and what they would like to do in regards to gun violence. So, Louis, let's start about the great event that happened back on September 24th.
Yeah, it was important that we organized this event, the Community March Against Gun Violence. It was a true community collaboration with various community organizations coming together and saying, look, we have to provide a space for people impacted by gun violence to have their say. Because a lot of people think after the funeral things go back to normal, but they don't. The impacts of gun violence on the families, on the individuals, and on the community are severe. And it's very traumatizing, filled with grief and uncertainty. And the supports that are available to this population are not where it's supposed to be. So we wanted to create a space where we invited mothers who had lost children to gun violence to come out and walk and have their say, because when mothers speak, people generally listen. So we had several community organizations working as a collaboration in terms of putting it together. But we had mothers who had lost children to gun violence uh, come out and walk, and for the first time be able to speak about their current situation, their concerns, their challenges, and their opportunities. But also, it was a very loud statement against gun violence. People do not really understand the magnitude and the depth of the impacts of gun violence on our communities and our families. And this was an opportunity to say, enough is enough. We need to stop this madness, and it needs to be a priority to the politicians, the service providers, the community organizations, because gun violence impacts and affects us all in so many ways. So the march was about doing that. We had about, I guess, 400 people coming out, walking down Young Street, led by some skateboarders. You might ask, why skateboarders? Because a young man, 15 years old, had been shot and killed by a 13-year-old, and he was part of the skateboarding community. So they said that they would come down just to celebrate the 15-year-old's life, Jordan, and participate. And they did a fabulous job leading us down Young Street from Young and Bloor, where another mother had lost her son to gun violence, right into City Hall, where we had the mothers speaking and creating a space for the young people also to talk about how gun violence impacts us. So yeah, it was an opportunity to say enough is enough. The politicians are not taking this thing seriously. They needed to hear from the people most impacted, and the voice that really can resonate with them, should resonate with them, are the mothers that have lost children to gun violence. So that was it in a nutshell. Uh, it was well attended. We even had members of the Raptors organization come down and support, because they are trying to get the federal government to recognize a specific day of the year as Gun Violence Awareness Day. Uh, so it was just fitting that we link up, and they actually showed up and they participated. And it was also a message to corporate Toronto to wake up and also get involved, because they've stayed away from this issue as though it was a plague. In fact, it is a plague in our community, but it's going to continue to be a plague if people sit down on the sidelines and do nothing about it.
Excellent. Ryan is with us. Good morning, Ryan. How are you?
Very good. Good to see you. As always, Louis. Good to see you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Good, good. With this march, I always like to see how success came into being. So can you give us sort of the process or the journey on how it became, how did the idea start to it becoming a march of 400 people? How did all these organizations come together?
This is about the third year that we've done this. We've done marches just to bring attention to this crisis in our community. We had one organized The first one, we were expecting 300 people to show up, and we had over 3,000. That was along University Avenue. And
Right.
people came from Ottawa, people came from Hamilton, people came from Niagara Falls to participate. And we ended up at Queen's Park. And again, it was an opportunity to bring attention to the gun violence issue that a lot of people just hope will go away, but it's not going away. In fact, it's getting worse. Uh, we had another one. It was called Enough is Enough. And that was organized by groups such as Develop Me Youth. The young people took the lead on this one. And we had another 400, 500 people attend that one. We've had this one now, and we're going to continue to do it because there has to be a heightened awareness about the impacts of gun violence on our society, but there has to be a heightened awareness because the politicians, whether it's federal, whether it's provincial, or whether it's municipal, have actually sleepwalked through this issue, coming up with recommendations and policies uh, and programs that are not addressing the real root causes of gun violence and why they'll continue to play gun violence as a hot potato. That means passing it on to each other and blaming each other. The problem is morphing into something that uh, is having significant impact on each and every one of us. And they have not come up with the right solutions. So we're going to continue to march. We're going to continue to bring awareness to the issue of gun violence. And we're going to continue to build partnerships with those that are actually concerned and want something to be done about it. So that's how it originally started. But what we're finding is that this is not a Toronto only issue, it's a national issue. It's been going on this way for the last almost 10 years now. And the political leadership that we have never really addressed the issue. But Zero Gun Violence movement, we work with those mothers who have lost children to gun violence. We work with the young people that are responsible for the violence. So we see this violence from a different perspective. But we also see the suffering, the hurt, the pain that it's having in our communities, in our families, and we know disproportionately which communities it's impacting. So we're going to continue to do this until we get these levels of government doing the work that is necessary to address this problem.
And I was curious, I'm sure you've seen on Instagram or TikTok the conversation around if we wanted to see gun violence stop or young Black boys stop getting killed, for parents to start getting them insurance. And I was curious to hear your thoughts on kind of that perspective where if early enough parents are thinking about putting insurance on their children, would that start to alleviate and get more powers that be to pay attention when these deaths are happening?
I'd hate to think that, we're looking at the financial piece of this. There's a human cost. There's a human cost that is more significant, but the insurance piece, it will force corporate Toronto to also join in the work to address this issue because the insurance companies do not want to pay out money for that.
Right.
But if it's going to affect their bottom line, again, this is a multifaceted problem, multidimensional, and there's many things that can be done to bring the attention to it, and there's much that can be done to solve this. But clearly, we are not doing the right work at this particular time. And while this lack of concern, lack of leadership, lack of courage lack of commitment exists, more and more people are impacted. The suffering is enormous. The thing about it is somebody that's impacted by gun violence, they don't walk around with a sign on their forehead and say, guess what? I lost my son to gun violence and I'm hurting. There's a silence about it on that side. And because that silence is a reality, the government would rather focus on fixing potholes because they can get some media coverage on it than dealing with this issue. And one of the things about zero gun violence movement is bringing awareness to the reality of gun violence. Gun violence does not happen in a vacuum. My mentor, Dudley Laws, always said, nobody's born with a gun in their hand. Nobody's born saying that I want to be a gang leader or a drug dealer or a pimp. There's a series of events, socio-economic, that happen that creates this pathway to picking up a gun and to be getting violent in its use. What is that pathway, and what are we doing as a society? What are we doing as a community? What are we doing as families? What are we doing as individuals to address this problem? And clearly what is going on is not enough. So the insurance piece is one factor, one facet, but it's a bigger picture that requires a lot more work and effort.
And I'm curious, so the marches happen. Is there a step after the marches that could put, like, do you feel like there's something that is next if the marches, they don't start paying attention, that the movement would be willing to do to really put more pressure on the government? Because it seems they're getting good at ignoring the marches and not really putting a lot of solutions in place.
That's an interesting question. One of the objectives of the march was to bring awareness to the magnitude and the depth of gun violence, the social, the economic, and the human costs. When we do the march to bring awareness to these different factors, the response that we've gotten so far, the federal government, I think it was like 4 days after the march, announced that they were going to fill the position of ombudsman that looks after victims of crime. Right? I'm not going to say it was directly related, but that position was open for a whole year and nothing had been done. That means if you have concern as a victim of crime, where do you go for help and how do you get it? That position was left vacant for a whole year. But 4 days after the march, they finally announced and filled that position. Since the march, we've had several phone calls from Joe Public. What can we do to help? One person, he's 70 years old, retired on his farm, said, I'd like to help organize next year's march, and we should aim for 100,000 people.
Okay.
Because this is a serious problem, and the only way the politicians are going to take this seriously is if we have a march on that magnitude.
Right.
And we've had several other individuals phone and saying, what can we do to help? So Joe Public has responded more than the politicians. Because Joe Public, when I say Joe Public, I mean in the public in general.
Yes.
Realize that the information that they're getting from the politicians about gun violence misses the mark on many of the factors. And they realize that, hold on a second, if we remain silent and allow and count on the police to solve this problem, is not getting the results. So the march achieved this objective in terms of bringing the mothers from across the city together. It was successful in bringing awareness to it. one of the key factors that are missing is corporate Toronto. When it comes to a march for cancer, sickle cell, whatever, they'll be there. But when it comes to supporting an initiative like gun violence, they say hell no, because they see it as high risk, because they don't want to be associated with it. But they need to be involved too, right? So we brought awareness, and the Toronto Raptors have, because of their initiative to get the government to declare a day of the year for gun violence awareness, they actually came out. Masai Jerry came out. He came out and he marched with us. He stayed and he listened to the speeches and stuff. So what next after the march? We've seen a small reaction from the government. We see a municipal election coming up. And unfortunately, we're not hearing any of the candidates speak about gun violence on their platform. Nia Singh has been doing it. Reginald Tuck has been doing it. But nobody else. And I'm concerned that the public is not demanding answers from them in terms of what do they plan on doing. I'm going to talk a little bit about some statistics in terms of the gun violence. As of October the 9th, we've had 320 shootings in the city of Toronto. That's more than one per day. As of October the 9th, we've had 35 homicides due to gun violence. That's almost one per week. We've got a major problem here. And if the politicians continue to remain silent about it, we're going to continue to march, and we're going to continue to use whatever means that we have to challenge them, to show concern. And the only time that they actually show concern, and I do have to say this because it's real, is when it spills into previously recognized safe zones, into their communities.
Right.
And when non-black people are involved, then they get serious about it. And your classical example is is in 2005 when we had the year of the gun, when there were 52 homicides. 52 people lost their life due to gun violence. That's one per week. It only got attention when Jane Krieber got shot at Young and Dundas in front of Foot Locker. All the other 51 before that, nobody knew about. But once Jane Krieber got shot, all of a sudden, everybody woke up. So when the violence spills over into their communities, that's when they get concerned. But right now, it's beginning to spill over already. And maybe that might be the driver for them to do something about it. So what next still has to be seen, but we're going to continue to bring this issue to the forefront until we get the action that is necessary to address this problem.
All right, I'm just going to jump in here. Got some comments. Freddie King says the government doesn't care about gun violence unless it's a Caucasian person gets hit. He also says, imagine if the black community got the same respect as Jane Krieber. We also have black people have been murdered in church attending a funeral for their friends. Hold on a second here. So, question here. Good morning, gentlemen. While we acknowledge a plague of gun violence across Canada and the US of A, what is the expectation from corporations and the government in providing, or in terms of providing solutions? Louis?
Corporations. Most of these people that are involved in criminal activity will have 2, 3, sometimes 4 cell phones. I don't see Rogers. I don't see Bell Mobility. I don't see them involved in maybe like a mentorship program, hiring these kids to keep them off the streets. Corporate Toronto has remained criminally silent on this issue. And that has to change. The top 15 employers in the city of Toronto, starting with the city of Toronto, will not hire anybody with a criminal record. We know many people that have gotten jobs because they were able to do it and they had the qualifications and the experience, that lost their job when a criminal record check was done and it was found out that they had committed some crime or something. That has to change. The top employer of the city of Toronto will not hire anybody with a criminal record. And now they're looking at what they can do to maybe change that. But a financial institution, the Toronto District School Board, all these people have a role to play. But if they will not provide opportunities for these young people, then who do we blame? Right? People will make mistakes. Some people are carrying charges that were not legitimate because people in certain communities are over surveilled, overcharged, underrepresented in the justice system. And they carry a record that is not deserving. And that's going to stop them from getting a job. We can fight this all we want, but we need a coordinated commitment from corporate Toronto to invest in these communities. There are certain communities in our city, when the sun sets, everybody runs home and they don't come up because there's nothing going on in their community. And they live in fear, or they're traumatized to even come out. We need businesses to invest in these areas. They're not doing it. They'd rather set up shop in other communities. So corporate Toronto has a role to play, right, in terms of addressing this issue of gun violence. But as I said, their silence is criminal because they have the resources, means to provide opportunity, and they're not doing it.
Okay, some more comments and questions are coming in really good here. Freddie asked this question. We need to bring the fathers together. How many children get caught up in gun violence when the fathers are in the house?
I think Freddie should be part of zero gun violence movement.
Yes.
Look, we all have a role to play. The fathers are missing, sometimes not by choice, but by conditions. Whether it's court, whether it's relationships, challenges, our community works best when our family is working as a family. Right now, I'm working with a young man who's under house arrest. He's been under house arrest for 2 years. And he still has not gone to court yet. He wants to be involved with his children. But the limitations on him doesn't allow him to get out with his children. So the single mother is going to try and bring up the children. But she's got 1 job, 2 jobs. What can she do? Right? Uh, because the supports are not there. So, for this question is legitimate. We as family, we as community have to take a more active role, but we have to learn to work together in partnership because one person will have difficulty. The negative pressures of peer pressures and stuff like that, we have to be stronger than that. We have young people that when they are at home, they're a different person. They smile, they do things the right way. But as soon as they go outside on the street, it's like they morph into somebody else.
Hmm.
Can a mother keep track of all of this? Right? The family needs help. Right? Because we cannot count on the politicians and the police to deal with this. Clearly, if this was the right move, we would not be in this problem. Because we have government that keeps giving money to the police to solve this problem when the police are saying we can't do this by ourselves.
Right.
We need community. But what is community? Community is rooted in family. And if we don't have the family there, with the male and the female working together, it's going to be challenging. And the forces that are winning in that are normally the negative forces on the street.
All right. Macmillan Group, what percentage of the shootings are targeted and what percentage are random? And how much of the general population is actually impacted by gun violence?
Okay, let me deal with the second question first. So this question was raised at a meeting we had with another collaborator, a community meeting with people that were dealing with the gun violence issue. And the question was asked, what's the financial economic cost on society for gun violence? And someone said, from their research, it's over $1.5 million for each shooting. And I'm saying, well, how do you justify that? Policing, justice, healthcare, corrections, right? You put that all together, and the bill averages out to about 1.5 million. Who pays that bill? You do. When you go to the store and you pay your taxes, where do you think that money goes? Right? The impact is significant, and it's not only economic, it's a human cost. It's a human cost where a mother is saying that I bought a suit for my son. It was supposed to be for his graduation, not for his funeral. How can you ignore that? It's the community. Certain communities, we always speak about the difference between living in Rosedale and living in Rexdale. In Rosedale, it's very vibrant. People are smiling, people are having fun, people are going to work, people are coming home and going to the park. But then you live in Rexdale, and what do you encounter? What do you encounter? You don't see that same vibrancy. You don't see the smiles. Like it's illegal to smile in these communities. What are you smiling about? Right? The costs are significant. And what we're seeing right now, let's go back to the first part of the question. Targeted versus non-targeted. That is changing. What's happening with gun violence? The characteristics of gun violence have changed over the last few years, where there's more innocence now involved. Right? Previously, if you spoke to gang people, there used to be codes about the use of guns, who was being shot, where, when, and how, right? It was self-regulated. because the gang people said we didn't want to go out there shooting willy-nilly all over the place to bring attention to our business and our neighborhood. So the gun violence was, maybe I would say, like a last resort.
Mm.
Whereas the gun violence now, the characteristics have changed. The main changes are the influence of social media, where you can brag, boast, celebrate guns.
Hmm.
The age of the people using the guns, where it used to be like mid 20s and stuff. No, it's mid teens.
Hmm.
You know, I made reference to Jordan, who got shot by a 13-year-old. Jordan was 15 years old. We're seeing more and more teenagers now carrying guns and using them. But they don't have the codes of yesterday. There's an escalation of the violence. So if somebody shoots in one neighborhood, the retaliation factor is someone else is going to pay for it. But it's not going to be 1 for 1. It's going to be 2 for 1 or 3 for 1. So it doesn't have to be targeted. It's the numbers that matter, right? So when I say the characteristics of gun violence is changing and morphing right in front of us, there's different things that we have to take into consideration. And we're seeing shootings now in broad daylight. We're seeing shootings in a playground where the target is there. There's 11 children in the playground, and someone's hiding behind a fence and trying to hit the target as though it's a video game, and hits 3 of the children.
Mm-hmm.
We've never heard of that before, right? We saw the shooting in Danzig, 2012, at a community barbecue. We never seen that before, where 2 people got shot and killed. We saw the shooting in the Eaton Center, in the food court. People going shopping and going to the food court. And there's an exchange of gunfire. Just last year, we saw another shooting at a birthday party for a 1-year-old. A 1-year-old. And there's gunfire at the birthday for. So it's sad to say, but the longer we take to recognize what's going on, the more difficult it will become. So in a sense, safe zones being breached is going to become the norm. So the level of fear and despair now that we see in the city, we've never seen it before. When you hear a loud noise, first time people would think anything but gunshots. Now when they hear, what do they think of? We had a shooting in a cemetery this year already. At a funeral. We had a shooting in a memorial. That was the one that was related to Houdini. We've never seen that type of brazenness and wanton carelessness taking place. So yeah, targeted versus non-targeted, to answer the question, we're seeing more innocents being victims of gun violence than we've seen before. And if the target cannot be had, they'll find somebody else.
All right. So just want to do a reset here. We're talking with Louis Marsh from the Zero Gun Violence Movement. And just to remind everyone, coming up on this Friday's show, Ray McMillan of the McMillan Group will be talking about mortgages and real estate, buying, financing, investing, relocating, and downsizing. And got lots of comments going on here, Louis. So let me just put this one up. Excuse me. Let's see. Oh, Freddie says, put it up here. The real reason why we have a lot of gun violence is because there's no love felt in the homes. If mothers and fathers are able to put their differences aside for the sake of their children. I think you may want to respond to this one, Louis. Gun violence and having a criminal charge is not the same thing. I'm not following the correlation. Using the gun to kill someone or to commit a crime is a choice.
You know what? I'm going to deal with Freddie's comment about love. Because sooner or later, we're going to have to talk about how do we get ourselves out of this mess,
Mm.
right? Uh, so I spoke at Ryerson University to students in a criminology course or policing about gun violence. And I spoke for 1 hour. And with me was a mother who had lost her two sons to gun violence. And I had my graphs, I had my presentation, and I thought I did a good job. However, when I was finished, the mother who had lost her two sons to gun violence came up to me and she said, Louis, and whenever she starts that way, I know something's going to happen, right? She said, you spoke for 1 hour about gun violence and you did not mention the word love once.
Hmm.
And I said, well, I wasn't here to speak about love, I was here to speak about gun violence. And she said, well, if I lost my two sons to gun violence and I can speak about love, I don't see why you can't. Because the solution is rooted in our love and our caring. And where that is missing and that is lacking, the gun violence. So whenever I speak now anywhere about gun violence, I try to, well, I ensure that I speak about that. So Fred is onto something. We don't care until it impacts us directly.
Mm.
It's over there. He was involved. You know, he could have made better choices. But when it impacts you now, all of a sudden, you understand what was going on. So the loving and caring that comes from a family and from a community is not where it should be. In terms of the choice to use guns in violence, I'm going to give you another scenario. And this is real. A young person got shot. He had 3 children. He has a younger brother that adored him. He got shot. The older brother got shot and killed. The younger brother was a good student in school, enjoying life. But when his older brother got shot, he changed dramatically. His school, his grades, everything just deteriorated because his anchor was removed violently. He got a small job and he was making some small monies. And he went to his mom and said, you know, like, I got some money and I want to buy a gun to protect myself. And she says, hell no. So he went out and bought a gold chain instead. A week later, he got robbed of that gold chain. Next time he got some money, guess what he did?
Mm-hmm.
He bought a gun.
Mm.
Yep.
And then he got involved in some activities. Right? Sometimes you say it's a matter of choice. He made the right decision. He spoke to his mom, he bought the gold chain. But then he became a victim. And what we're finding is that people that are bullied, people that are victimized, sometimes their response is to protect themselves. We had another shooting in another part of the city where a guy was running and he got shot in his legs. So he said, not again. So he went and got a gun. And when he saw the people that had shot him in his legs, he fired at them and hit them. Right, you know? So there's something else going on the streets about security and protection. And people are not going to pay $1,500 for a gun, $2,000 for a gun and put it under their pillow anymore. Right? So you live in certain communities And where violence is a regular occurrence, sometimes you think you need a gun to protect yourself for security. It's a shame, but this is the reality. And when you talk about choices, let me put it this way. You're playing a card game of life. The opposition has 52 cards in their deck. That means they've got a good job, they've got a good housing, good family, good visions for life and everything. But you've only got 2 cards in your deck. You can't play normal. So when we talk about choices, we've got to ask, what were the choices? In certain communities, even if you walk around with a smile on your face, people look at you as though something's wrong. Because you have to have that bad man look about you, that bad man talk, that bad man walk. That's a defense mechanism. Whether it's a knife or whether it's a gun, you feel you have to carry something. In another neighborhood, you don't have to worry about that because everything's lined up proper. You can smile all you want. You can go shopping. You can go to work in like the choices. And if you allow me, I'm going to give you one more example. A young person in one part of the city, she's going to school. She wakes up in the morning. She had a good night's sleep. She had a nice breakfast laid out for her when she got up. She had a choice of clothes. She was going to be driven to school, right? She was going to school with high expectations. And she had a big smile on her face. In another part of the city, a girl wakes up. Her breakfast is maybe a leftover slice of pizza from yesterday, the day before, right? That's her breakfast. She didn't have a good night's sleep because there was gunshots in her neighborhood or there was conflict in the household or something. She had no choices. She had to go to school. She had to walk to school. She had to pretend as though everything was normal. She falls asleep in the class. And the teacher says, "Why are you sleeping? Go down to the principal's office." The choices are not the same. It depends on the environment and the circumstances. So when somebody carries a gun, yes, of course, we're not going to support it. But you live in that neighborhood for a week, and you tell me if you come out being the same person. And that's what we do not have. We do not have that understanding of the problem. So we can sit down on the side and say, you should have made better choices. But as I said, if one person has 52 cards in their deck and I've only got 2, I'm not going to be smiling with you.
Okay. The questions are coming in. They're coming in. Next up, Ray again says, so if there's a breakdown in the codes, perhaps the hierarchy of street gangs needs to be reinforced, and that may help control the randomness of the violence. A conversation with the gang leaders may be the real conversation to be had.
No, these are good questions. They're legitimate, and they must be asked. However, the response to it is, we always talk about gangs. But are we talking about gangs here? They're not gangs. They're an affiliation of friends that are going to protect the street. The codes, the structure, the organization that gangs would normally have don't exist. They're a loose group of friends. That my friend was shot and killed or disrespected, and I'm going to defend his honor. It's not no gang, but everybody wants to label and say gang, 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 gang. They're not gangs, right? So things have changed. Remember, I talked about how the culture has changed. They're not structured gangs where codes apply. These are just friends coming together and saying, "My friend got shot, so we've got to retaliate." Right? And whatever codes they have, they change from day to day, from hour to hour, if they have any codes. Right? So we have to understand the problem. Like a surgeon does not operate on a patient if he doesn't understand the problem properly. You can't say, "Well, I've got a pain in my back. Let's just cut open your back and see what's going on." You have to understand what's going on before you come up with your solution and your strategy. And what's happening is people that are coming up with solutions don't understand the multifaceted and changing nature of gun violence or gang violence. Because what used to be yesterday is not the same today. So you can't come and say, "Well, I'm from the old school. I believe in putting more boots on the ground to solve this problem. So here's some more money to the police. Let them deal with it."
Right.
You can't be doing that in 2022 because the police have already told you that they're chasing bullets. They can't interrupt this cycle of violence unless they have help from the community. So who's saying what and who's listening and who is acting? These are good questions.
Right.
The politicians should be on this call.
True.
Because they need to be educated. There's something in the legal profession called willful blindness. And that's a legitimate charge if somebody willfully ignores a problem and says, "Oh, I didn't know this was going on." It's called willful blindness. A lot of the politicians are practicing that.
All
They
right.
pretend as though they do not know what's going on. It's a policing thing. No, it's not a policing issue. It's a
Agreed.
lot more than that, and the police have told you that.
Hayden is asking, is there any effective strategies available that can limit the number of guns coming into the community?
Look, this should be broadcast to the politicians, the ones that are running for political office. Because they're talking about banning guns, banning long rifles, banning guns, and so on. 90% of the guns found at crime scenes are illegal guns smuggled across the border. 9 out of 10. Why are we focusing on the legal gun owners? Because they're already regulated to death. Well, not to death, but they're regulated, right? They can't even move a gun from point A to point B unless they meet certain requirements, right? The focus has to be on the border and the illegal guns coming in. And the sad thing about this is that the kids that are using the guns are not the ones that are bringing the guns across the border.
Right.
They're going to be stopped. They're going to be searched. So who is bringing the guns across the border? People that don't fit the profile. And then the guns get into the community.
Right.
You can buy a gun in the States for $300 and sell it up here for $2,000. Right? The kids cannot bring these guns across. Who's bringing them across? 90% of the guns used in criminal activity are illegal guns smuggled across the border from America, which is the largest producer, manufacturer of guns, and we have the largest free border with that country. Maybe we should build a wall between America and Canada,
Right.
and let the Americans pay for it, right?
Get
That's
you.
Trump's school of immigration thing, right? We have to get serious about what we do at the border.
Mm.
The people
Yeah.
that they're finding with 25, 30, 35 guns in their vehicle are not the young kids using them.
No.
Mm.
So how are the guns getting it? So we have to focus our attention there.
Okay. So Christopher from Facebook, I commend the work that you're doing, Louis Marsh, and it also has a question: is social investment the answer for youth development to reduce territory issues and concerns?
Social investment and economic investments. We have to have massive investment in these communities. We know the communities. I could sit down here and list off 20 of them right now for you.
Mm.
So if I know you don't think the government knows it too, massive investments, job opportunities. And I got to be careful about jobs because some of these kids don't even want a job these days.
Mm.
They're more driven by the hustle. Because you put them into a 9 to 5 job, they won't even show up on the first day. Right? Because it's not cool. Programs in these communities. They always talk about programs and jobs. The hell with the programs. Sorry for all the program people here. The communities are programmed to death.
Mm.
But are they targeting, are they reaching out to the population that needs their help? The population that needs their help will not show up at their programs.
Mm.
Look, these kids are not angels, okay? Many of them are not angels, but they're not the devil either, right? We have to create programs that specifically engage that population. Most of the programs out there are 9 to 5 programs, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Mm.
They start packing up at 4 o'clock to close the doors at 5. Who's going to run a program from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. when this population needs the help and they're out and about? Right? So social investments are important, but it's not the quantity of social, it's the quality of social investments. And do we have the right people running these programs? Do we have the right people that are not going to be judgmental, are going to give these people a couple ears to listen to what they're going through?
Right.
Right? Oh, like the government came out with a funding initiative for $5 million, and it's about creating jobs. Right?
Mm.
What type of jobs and who's going to get those jobs? Who's going to work with that population that we call the shadow people? They're not. They have difficulty navigating through the systems that currently exist. So they go on the periphery, and that's where they operate. They live, eat, and sleep in the shadows, and unfortunately, they also work in the shadows. They're not going to show up at your 9 to 5 program. How to do resume writing. They're not going to show up at your program about conflict resolution. They ain't going to show up. Social investments, of course, is important, but it's not the quantity of social, it's the quality.
Mm.
Got it. Another question from Christopher. Is there any more grassroots youth organizations can do that are underfunded to combat youth violence?
Okay, I'm going to answer it this way. We need more grassroots, yes, but the grassroots are not going to get funded by the powers that be. We have something we call it the funding Olympics. The funding Olympics gives you a picture. So the funder comes out, whether it's government, corporate, or whatever it is, they know who's going to get the gold, the silver, and the bronze medal.
Mm.
These are people that they're familiar with, organizations that they've known. They've been around for centuries, well, decades, right? They know the people. In fact, they golf with them on the weekend. So they know who's going to get the gold, the silver, and the bronze in terms of that. And then guess what? The leftover funding, all the other organizations now have to compete for it. So they have to undermine each other. They have to tell lies. They have to say, well, we can reach this population and we can do this, just so that they can outcompete the other organization, right? We call it the funding Olympics. So the grassroots, they don't have the infrastructure to compete with the gold, silver, and bronze medal winners. But they're the ones on the street that can reach out and tap in to the shadow people, right? They're not going to have the structure, well, send me 5 years of your financial statements. Hey,
Right.
right? For you to. And here's this 20-page application that you need to fill out. They're not going to survive that, right? So the funding Olympics is another part of this problem. How do we address it, right? So grassroots, I have more faith. We work with over 40 different organizations, agencies, and programs across the city of Toronto. But most of them are grassroots. Most of them are grassroots because they're underground. And in fact, a lot of those grassroots organizations, they have people working there that have been involved in the past. So their insights and their knowledge is going to be 10 times better than somebody that comes out of a classroom with a textbook degree, right?
Agreed. Let's catch up on. We're in a bit of bonus time, but people keep on wanting to ask and getting knowledge bombs from Louis. So Freddie's saying he's right. Says, look at the government housing, for example. There's always trying to place black families in a high crime zone. Police are getting shot themselves. When they ban guns, Canada will turn into tyranny. Watch and see. The programs are a scam. Ray says 25 handguns in a rental car at gas tank. The inside story of a gun bust at the Canada-U.S. border. The case of Toronto mom Rena Masur offers rare insight into how authorities deal with smuggling. Also here, how do we switch the focus from the end users of guns to those responsible for the guns coming in? Is there a strategy for that?
The gun manufacturers have to take some responsibility here. The end user, the kids on the streets, but that's just one piece of that journey of the gun, right? We can do a better job with the gun manufacturers. The transportation of the guns with the technologies that we have. We're supposed to be able to track guns, right? The border agents will tell you, in 2021, we stopped 700 guns from coming in. And I give them credit for that. But they can't tell you how much they didn't stop.
True.
The one with the 25 guns, look. The one with the 25 guns in the gas tank, someone was carrying the guns for somebody else. Right? We had another one with 50 guns that was stopped, carrying it for somebody else. Right? So we have to do a better analysis where the guns are coming from, what parts of the border, who's carrying them, and what is the law doing about it. One issue that hasn't come up, and I want to mention it, I know you're into bonus time, but The solution to gun violence is not as difficult as people make it out to be.
Okay.
The problem is the stakeholders cannot work together and share information because they're all working in their silos. So Freddie spoke about community housing. We know at one time that 50-60% of the shooting took place in community housing areas. That's easy pickings if you want to deal with it. But is community housing going to work with the Toronto District School Board and employment agencies and policing? Right? The stakeholder, look, the three levels of government, federal, provincial, and municipal, cannot sit down at the same table and discuss this problem because they all have different reasons as to what's going on and how to solve it. When the three levels of government can't even sit down at the table and come up with a plan, we got a problem. They can come up with a plan for this, they can come up with a plan for that. But when it comes to gun, they're all coming at different levels and also blaming each other. So the solution is grassroots. It has to be community-based. The city of Toronto, I must give them credit, sorry. They have a safe TO plan, which is a 10-year investment in dealing with gun and gang violence. Realizing that there's not a one fix, but it's rooted in community involvement and engagement. And they've got that set up now and it's been approved by the city council. We need to move that along quickly. I don't have 10 years to wait. They've also got something towards peace. And these people they helped us with the march. You just don't walk down Yonge Street without government help, right? We could do it, but when we have them on our side, it's easier to navigate, right? And they also help in the preparation and logistics to make sure it went through right. So people are trying, but if this is like a one-off, it's not good enough. This has to become the norm, where the stakeholders are sitting down at the same table. A kid in elementary school can tell you who's involved in criminal activity, but the police do not know, and the Toronto District School Board doesn't know. So when I talk about willful blindness, this is what I'm talking about, right? So unless these stakeholders can sit down at the same table, right? The employers, corporate Toronto, they have to be at the table. Like, people will make mistakes. Some people are carrying charges that are not legitimate, and that's going to stop you from moving your life forward.
Right.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Awesome closing out things here. The Women Group, having had firsthand experience with a young nephew who did 5 years for a weapon crime, it was the support of the family that got him through jail and into a meaningful profession upon release. Also, the solution, in my opinion, has to be at the local level and folks who understand pros and cons to guide and inspire and motivate. And then final question, again from Christopher from Facebook's, ideally, if you had your way, what type of program would you like to see or hear witness to?
We need programs, and I'm going to be very quick with this, that engage the population that is involved. Give them incentive to be at the table. They know what they need, right? We cannot have decisions made by people on the penthouse. We need decisions made on the ground floor, right? We need to shift the focus to those people that are impacted. Listen to the mothers who have lost. That's why we had the march. That's how we started this program today, this interview. They need to be at the table because they know their children and what happened. They might not want to talk about it publicly, but some of them will. And they will offer solutions. Think of the people that were involved, done the crime, done the time, and want to make a difference. I give more value to their inputs than other people that are making decisions. They need to be more involved. There has to be a more collaborative. And I like what Freddie said about love and caring. What are we doing in our families and in our communities to show love and care? What are we doing? Right? So these are the type of things that need to change. But it has to be led by people that are courageous, willing, leaders that are committed. This cannot be an afterthought. This has to be a priority. And we have this municipal election and a clear reason why this problem is going to continue, because the people running for political office are not even speaking about this issue. Somebody asked me, who are the real criminals? Who are the real criminals? I'm just going to leave it at that.
Well, Louis, thanks again for taking the time and sharing with us, especially your passion. And when you were describing what sort of leaders, you fit that. We need more of you. More of you, not more of you, more of you.
Yes.
On the front lines. And for people who want to find out more information, the website is there, zerogunviolence-movement.com. Thanks as always for spending and sharing with us. You know, you always have a home here. Whatever you need to share, from the mothers to yourself to the community massive, you always have a home here. So I'd like to say, on behalf of myself and Ryan, thank you so much.
Well, thanks for Monday morning vibe. Seriously.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like a 5-minute thing. Like I actually got a chance to bring in some pieces, right?
Yes.
Like without a 5-minute limitation or 200 words or whatever it is. So thanks for providing the opportunity to be on the show. Thanks for always being at the forefront of these difficult issues. You are a stakeholder in this, just like everybody else.
We both are. We appreciate it and don't take it for granted. Much love. And remember to give yourself grace, and don't just manage your time, manage your energy.
Thank you very much again.
Take care. All right. Epic conversation.
So much to learn, man. Much to learn.
The audience was right in, and especially Ray and Freddie were right in, and Christopher. Thank you, especially you three, for driving the questions and the conversation. So really appreciate that. Fitnance IQ Cam, amazing topic. Freddie says we definitely need more pardons and waiver access.
Right.
So, yes, sir. So what's up for the rest of your week?
Tuesdays we do the study group. So, I'm feeling to bring up this topic to see what the Black ecosystem is actually doing to support these types of movements. But the rest of the week is pretty quiet. I know there's an event. Oh, the event that we're going to on Wednesday.
Yes.
And there's something else happening. Black VC. They're doing I don't know if it's a panel, but a conversation about funding and investment and like venture capital. So I was looking forward to that conversation later. And I think the future is happening this week, or did I miss it? That might have been last week. So I'm gonna check and make sure it didn't already happen. But the Be Future conference looked pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's on Friday. Or one of the days it's on is on Friday.
Yeah.
Right.
How about yourself, sir?
Well, I've got to see if I can fight this head cold that's hit on me, because we have this event on Wednesday, and Buy Blocks coming up with their restaurant week is coming up soon.
And I think next week they're doing the kickoff, the press
media launch.
Yeah. So looking forward to that.
So that's coming up. What else? No. And again, thanks everyone who watches this live or on replay. Please subscribe wherever you're watching this. Subscribe to that platform. We like to get more and more subscribers. And again, coming up on this Friday's show, Ray McMillan of the McMillan Group will be talking about mortgages and real estate, buying, financing, investing, and relocating, and downsizing. So that is it for today. You can watch replays of this epic conversation. It's scrolling along the bottom there, but I'll just read it out. The Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and Facebook, Afro Caribbean Business Network on Facebook and YouTube, and Ryan Oneil Knight on YouTube. Actually, also Ryan Oneil Knight on LinkedIn.
Yes.
So you're everywhere. No surprise. So as always, we want to end off the conversation with this: live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumption. Then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourselves grace and don't just manage your time, manage your energy, and pray for me if you can to get this head cold out of my head.
We definitely will. Yes.
All right. We will see you on Friday. Be well and keep the faith.